Hey, welcome to The Know. I'm Ashley.
I'm Gus.
I'm Mika.
So, no denying, 2017 was a great year for video games. There were a lot of really, really great games came out. We saw new IPs like Horizon Zero Dawn that made a big splash. Wonderful game, along with a lot of installments from classic franchises. We got Super Mario Odyssey, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Persona 5.
Oh,
And then there was this little game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds that made the Battle Royale genre even more popular.
Would you call that an indie darling?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to. wouldn't
Yeah,
I?
it's kind of weird to think about, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I wouldn't think of Battlegrounds as an indie game, but I guess it technically is.
Of course, despite that stellar lineup of games, there were some flops as well. For all the big hits we had this year, there were some really high-profile misses, and some were really surprising considering that many of them came from very well-established franchises with rabid player bases.
Yeah, so with all that being said, let's dive right into our list of the biggest flops of 2017. And just a small note, while some of these flopped sales-wise, others might have sold decently, but we're putting them in the flop category if they were considered dumpster fires by their fans and reviewers.
Very popular dumpster fires,
Yeah.
and yet. Anyway, all right. So, caveats aside, on to the flops.
Yes.
First up,
How many teraflops?
6.
Okay.
Teraflops.
Battlefront 2.
Oh.
Star Wars Battlefront 2. Look, of course that was coming first.
Everyone knew it.
Of course it was. Star Wars Battlefront 2 hasn't even been out that long. Came out in November. But it's already making a huge name for itself as one of the biggest flops of the year for one reason in particular. Loot boxes. The game got praise for its graphics. It looks beautiful. It really does. A lot of people appreciate at least the attempt at a single player campaign.
Yeah.
It was a tad short, but I really enjoyed it.
was there.
Yeah. But lots and lots and lots of people understandably hated the presence of loot boxes. Not only, we get loot boxes in a lot of games now, but it wasn't just their existence, it's that they were pervasive. Everything in the game was driving you to spend money instead. And they contained progression items. So we're talking pay to win here. A lot of people ripped the game as being an example of microtransactions having gone too far. And Battlefront 2 not only got ripped by gamers, but by critics, and to date has sold... Well, last time they announced it, or we got estimates, it was around 900,000 copies in the U.S.,
Not
which
great.
is still a lot of copies, but nowhere near what they were hoping for. Analysts have downgraded their projections for EA's earnings in the future as a result of this, all due to one game. That, yes, in spite of, over 1 million copies worldwide, that's a flop.
Yeah, even governments
smells like a
are
flop.
weighing in, being like gambling loot boxes. Like governments are ripping on a game.
Battlefront 2 could be the night trap of 2017.
Good call.
Like, it's gonna lead to regulation that wasn't there before, because if the games industry won't regulate itself,
Can we put that on the
governments
box?
will.
Yeah.
Battlefront 2, the night trap of 2017. That'll sell copies.
AKA Night Trap 2.
Yeah, night trap.
Oh, God.
Of course, another game this year was For Honor.
I forgot that
That was,
existed.
that's right, that was January?
It was February, I think.
Wow.
For Honor
Gosh.
was a medieval-themed fighting game with a lot of potential that quickly fell off. The game was released in February, oh there it is, and got a lot of praise for its medieval multiplayer combat, but it had a ton of issues ranging from connectivity to microtransactions to the usual glitches and balance issues. Players ran for the hills, and at one point the game famously lost 95% of its player base.
Yikes.
And it was really quick, too, that I
Yeah.
lost it.
Yeah.
It was over a matter of, I want to say something like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There have been efforts to bring the game back, but you never get another chance to make a first impression. I gave up on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's this core audience that really plays For Honor a lot and really enjoys For Honor, and I think it's great that that game is there for that audience. But it is true, you don't get that second chance to impress people that tried it, said no, and left it. They've continued to support it with additional seasons of additional content, and they've been adding a lot more to it, but it hasn't recovered in the way that I think Ubisoft would have really liked it to. And it's a shame, because the first time we played it, I remember
It's a
this was
fun game.
E3 a couple years ago, and it felt so smooth, and it felt like it played really well. It's just that the depth and the balance wasn't there.
That game made me especially angry because as I was playing single-player campaign, single-player
Right, not even
campaign,
multiplayer.
I would get an error message every now and then that says, your Ethernet cable is unplugged. Please plug it back in,
Yep.
returning you to title screen.
Always
What?
online. Oh, yeah, it would kick you straight out.
Oh, that's rough.
And my Ethernet cable was not unplugged. Just spoiler alert.
Right.
It was fine.
Yeah.
That's some SimCity level bullshit.
That is.
Yeah,
That's
so,
awful.
So then, of course, progress was lost. I'd have to restart the level. I was like, I'm not doing this.
and at that point, you don't care.
Right. I was like, I've got other games I could be playing.
Right. Once the enjoyment falls off to the point that the frustration goes above it, you're out.
Yeah.
There are so many other games to play.
Right. And speaking of other games to play that are probably flops, Prey. Prey is a classic example of a good game that just didn't find its solid audience. The long-awaited reboot of the 2006 sci-fi adventure released on May 5th and won a lot of praise for its sci-fi combat and its story, but sales were a bit of a letdown, even though there was a lack of AAA competition during its launch week, and to make matters worse, its opening week sales were down 38% from Arcane's previous title, Dishonored 2, which had its issues.
Dishonored 2 had a rough launch for PC in particular.
Specifically, if you wanted to, see things.
Yeah,
it had
that
a
was
rough
the big problem
launch.
for us.
Yeah.
But Prey 2, I saw it before, I got to play it before it came out, after it came out. It's a really, really cool concept for a game, really cool world. No boss fights per se. You're not locked into any
Right.
specific level. You can explore the entirety of the game's world, which is this space station, from the beginning, really. And so you go through the game exactly as you want to go through it. And there's some really cool stuff in there.
You say no boss fights, but
Well, I mean,
the enemies were rather difficult. So
Yes.
like every time you encountered something, you're like, okay,
so
how am I going to
everything was
approach
kind
this?
of a boss.
Yeah.
Right. And the
yeah.
most rad opening sequence to a video game I
Yeah.
think I've seen in a really long time.
The Shattering Mirror was amazing.
It was so,
yeah.
and even just the flyover Arcane Studios that you saw on the bridge, like visually stunning. Too bad it wasn't that.
It's just, it's a shame that more people didn't get to play that opening.
Yeah.
Because, or that they, maybe if they'd offered that as a free demo or something, because that really felt like it hooked you into the world, and you got it.
Yeah.
So it is a shame. I wish that it had done better, but also acknowledge that just no one was talking about it. I don't know what it could have done to generate more buzz.
Right.
But if you haven't checked out Prey, if you like games like Bioshock or System Shock, think of that like that crossed with Dishonored, and it's the System Shock in space.
Right. So we're sorry that you're on the list, Prey, but you're on the list.
You're on the list.
Sorry.
From the commercial standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course there was, I'm going to count this, Destiny 2.
This one hurts me.
Obviously millions of people have still bought it, but it has had issues that really drag it down, and that's why it's on the list. It suffered from a lot of the same problems that Destiny 1 originally had, and that was things like a lack of endgame content.
Yeah.
But while developer Bungie's trying to fix that, it still sparked backlash from a lot of long-term fans of the franchise, in particular because everyone thought, this isn't your first time around, you don't have that excuse anymore, you knew what you were getting into, why is this still an issue? And then there was also a lot of hate towards their loot boxes, which in Destiny is bright engrams. Fans were upset that a lot of shaders seemed to be, they weren't locked into bright engrams, but that was your primary way of getting shaders to
And they were
customize your
consumables.
gear, and they're consumable,
Yeah.
one-time use, and a lot of concern over that. And then fans were also upset after the release of the Curse of Osiris DLC just recently, which conveniently locked players without the expansion out from some of the activities that they used to be able to play as part of the base game. And admittedly, that was kind of the case in Destiny 1 as well. That happened. But I feel like people are much more sensitive this time around. They're more sensitive with games now having loot boxes and all kinds of additional monetization. Not really in the mood to tolerate those sorts of lockouts.
Yeah.
And the devs have since admitted they messed up. They're trying to fix things. They've taken some steps to correct things like being locked out of certain content. They're working on endgame stuff. They've implemented changes to fix some of the endgame progression. So they're making steps. But like you said earlier, you get one chance to make that first impression, and a lot of people bowed out of Destiny 2 because they felt like it wasn't enough.
Yep.
This one is a particularly harsh for me because I'm such a Bungie apologizer. Like I'll say, give them a chance, guys. You know they're here for you. Like I wear my Warlock necklace and I'm like, it's gonna be okay. And even I was like, come on,
Yeah.
Bungie. like I
Like,
was
what are you
rooting for you.
doing?
Every time something else messes up, I keep going, I was rooting for you to do well, and I just, even you know how much I play Destiny. Even I don't do it weekly anymore. My whole raid crew and I are like, well, we did the raid twice. Maybe we'll come back in. Sure. It's heartbreaking as such a huge Destiny fan and trying to really keep it alive and trying to, like, I found myself in our Discord being like, come on guys, just give them a chance. We don't know what's gonna go on. Even I'm like, all right.
Let's go do something else.
Again, not to say it can't be fixed. The original Destiny made huge steps forward when they had their additional DLC and their new content come on, and they fixed a lot of things that were problems when that base game launched. And so it can do better, it can get better, they can fix things, and they can bring people back in.
I think in that statement, though, inherently is the problem. They had this in Destiny 1.
Why isn't it
Why
fixed?
is it in Destiny 2? You already knew what your issues were. Why are you doing it again?
It's a good point.
Like, that's where the heartbreak comes from me. It's like, y'all, we apologized 2 years ago. Now as you're supposed to, like, get out of the gate, you got it right. Like, I don't know.
Well, you know what? We'll pray for Bungie. Pray for Destiny,
#pray for
okay?
Bungie.
Yeah, press F to pray. Another game on the list is, of course, Lawbreakers.
Oh, God.
Lawbreakers.
Yikes.
Oh,
Oh, man.
It's a shame because while some people liked Lawbreakers, zero gravity combat, it unfortunately entered a world that was already chock full of hero-based shooters. The game from Cliff Bleszinski's Boss Key Studios had some fun gameplay but never got any traction with gamers despite multiple free weekends. Its player count at one point dropped down to 10 players.
Yikes!
Yeah,
and that
that's
was
pretty
that was
sad.
on Steam. I think the concurrence on Steam. Right?
Like in the whole world, 10 people were playing this game.
Yeah, like half the people playing the game could have been in this room right now.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so sad.
It was rough. It was very humbling for Cliff Bleszinski. He's of course a legendary game designer. He did Gears of War. He did he was an Unreal Tournament level designer. Very well known, very well respected. I think he worked on Jazz Jackrabbit.
Oh,
I mean,
shit.
yeah. But
I think,
this
like
game
I
just
said,
didn't gain any traction.
it was a super crowded market. You know, how do you differentiate yourself
How do you
from all
fight
those other
Overwatch?
games?
Like, just the end. How do you fight Overwatch with an Overwatch-ish game? You don't.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And and several other games have tried to compete in that space.
What was
And
that other one?
there was
Good question.
Exactly.
Good Lord.
Battleborn, that's it.
There have been a couple of other ones. There's a free-to-play clone that is doing okay because it's free to play.
Right.
But nothing has managed to go toe-to-toe with Overwatch at this point. And I would say Lawbreakers probably number one. And we didn't list it first because Battlefront II gets pride of place. But as far as flops of significance go, I think Lawbreakers is a big one.
It's a shame.
Yeah, 10 players total. Yikes.
Yikes indeed.
So the next one is the 1-2 Switch. I forgot this existed, the game 1-2 Switch. The game that should have
Also
been...
known as the cow milking game.
Yes, the cow milking, rootin' tootin' shootin' game. This collection of Switch games that centered around the console's motion controllers wasn't a bad game, but lots of people
It
wanted...
also wasn't a game.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a game, and everybody was wondering why it wasn't just included in the base system. Like,
Right, they
Wii
were
Sports.
charging for it.
Literally a full-priced game rather than just a Wii Sports tie-in. So currently it's sitting at a 58 on Metacritic, but on the upside, it shipped about 1 million copies.
But I think that's because there were no games to buy on the Switch really when it
Exactly.
launched.
Yeah, there's
you have to
a
have something to
couple.
play.
And it felt, when you play it, it plays like a pack-in tech demo.
Yeah.
It
And
does.
Here's what's possible with Joy-Cons.
It's a fun party game, like you want to get a couple people around and do stuff. But you're right, it's like how is this any different than Wii Sports?
Right, specifically the reason I paid $60 for this game is because the week the Switch came out, I was going to my friend's house and there were going to be 6 of us there with alcohol, so I bought 1-2 Switch because that would have been fun. If it wasn't for that weekend, never would have bought the game.
Nope.
Like, I think that's why people bought it. They were like, I'm getting a Switch, I have friends. But why it wasn't just a build-in like Wii Sports is so baffling to me.
Because at least a million people paid $60 for it. I guess that's why.
Shit, you are so right. That's money. Money is the answer.
Another flop in 2017, Drawn to Death. Do you even remember?
I do remember that.
I don't remember this
I played
game.
that at PSX like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, okay, so Drawn to Death had an interesting art style, had a unique take on the whole arena shooter genre, but the game's mechanics confused a lot of reviewers and a lot of players to the point where it's currently sitting at a 56 on Metacritic.
Yikes.
IGN gave it a 4 out of 10. A 4. Saying Drawn to Death is a mean-spirited, misguided mess that falls short mechanically and wants you to feel bad about yourself. So,
Tell us how you really feel.
I think they did.
Yeah, hashtag no filter.
No, that was a rough one. And not a great game. I think it unfortunately deserved its floppitude.
Floppity.
And then continuing on the list of floppitude is, of course, Ukulele.
Oh,
A lot of
man.
hope around Ukulele, a Kickstarter-backed game that was a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie series for the Nintendo 64. But while some reviewers appreciated all the nostalgia, it still felt like a dated platformer with a terrible camera.
So basically, it was old school Banjo-Kazooie without any of the kinds of fixes that people expect from modern technology.
Right. In fact, Chelsea Stark of Polygon summed it up by saying that Ukulele was proof that sometimes our fondest memories should stay in the past.
Shout out to all the people who were backed it and wanted it on Switch. When you get it soon.
You're not
Talking about
getting,
you, Caden.
you're getting it soon. Caden is just
No comment.
not happy.
The thing is, I think Ukulele, it's not a bad game per se. I think it's the game that people backed. If you wanted Banjo-Kazooie, but with like a find and replace of like the characters, and like, oh, this is Yuka and this is Lele,
Right.
but everything. Otherwise, you just wanted an old school Banjo-Kazooie game. It's pretty much that. It's just that era of games. Yeah, it was just a collectathon.
Yeah.
There wasn't a huge drive. There wasn't a driver to take you through any sort of story. It's just I mean, of course there's a story, but you basically get in the world, you collect a bunch of stuff until you get in another bit, and you collect a bunch of stuff there. And there's not, like, the development there is really basic. And I think people have got a little bit more accustomed to stronger drivers through a game.
And ooh boy, those floaty controls.
And sometimes the floaty controls were a little bit frustrating. But, it's true to what people backed, so it's got that going for it. It's just that I don't know that it appeals to anyone outside backers, which is why it kind of flopped.
Right. And we all knew this one was coming. This might be the biggest flop of the year, simply because of the giant gap between fans' expectations and what was actually delivered.
I know what's coming.
And also because this got a studio shut down. You might remember that Mass Effect fans...
Visceral?
Yeah, yes, it was visceral.
Oh no!
You might remember that Mass Effect fans were really looking forward to Mass Effect Andromeda. It had been years since we got a Mass Effect game, and this was supposed to be the beginning of a new direction for the franchise.
It had been in development for so many years.
It was a new direction for the franchise.
Yeah, shitty. Into
Down,
the trash.
into the ground.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the beginning of just like something amazing, and instead it was a buggy, mush-faced disaster. It was a collection of awkwardly walking, frozen-faced characters who were immediately ridiculed online for our entertainment. Response to Andromeda was so bad that BioWare closed the studio that made it and literally put the entire Mass Effect franchise on ice.
Literally.
Literally.
There's a big freezer somewhere.
Yeah.
They didn't want to use a dump because they figured in 20 years people might go dig up the copies like they did with ET.
So they're
they're just
put it
in
on
a
ice.
freezer somewhere.
Yes. You didn't know that. There's a giant Mass Effect freezer.
Now you know.
Now you know. Giant Bomb called the game an utter mess and said that given the heights Mass Effect has reached in the past, it's hard to believe this is what we've been waiting 5 years for. And it still hurts me.
That hurts so bad. I love the Mass Effect series.
I have my writer jacket over there that I bought before the game came out, and I shamefully put it on. And I was like...
Shame. Shame.
The thing is, the game isn't, technical mess aside, the game isn't horrific. It's just not good enough to make up for the technical problems.
I would say it's horrific adjacent. It's in that vicinity.
And this is coming from you completed it. You finished
I finished it. I beat the game.
Which is so
Yeah.
impressive to me.
The thing is, the earlier Mass Effect games, they also had their share of bugs. Like, you know, you'd get all those quick videos or images of Shepard, like, doing, like, a 360-degree head spin. Or just, like, super weird stuff would happen.
Right.
Like, facial animations. That stuff happened. Not to the degree it happened with Mass Effect Andromeda.
There was never a cutscene where a character was holding a gun backwards, shooting at stuff.
There was
Yeah.
also never need for a subreddit of r/share your writer, so you could actually get something not monstrous.
I totally used that subreddit.
Same. So did I, because I wanted to not look at something disgusting for 35 hours.
Yeah, and you know, they did fix some of those shader issues and everything, but by then it was already a laughingstock online. It was the butt of all the jokes, and that's not going to sell you a lot of copies. Like, only so many people are going to buy a game because it's bad.
I wonder if we can buy a license for the franchise on the cheap right now.
Ooh, we can make our own Mass Effect.
And yeah, we can kickstart that, and then kickstart development of our own Mass Effect game.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
No. We don't want to end up on the biggest flops of 2018 list.
18.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna fast track development.
We're gonna shit out a game in a year.
Throw in a couple of loot boxes. Anyway, those are our picks for the biggest flops of 2017. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Are there flops that are not included that you think should be known? Let us know in the comments.
And for all your video game news, flops or not, be sure to like this video. And if you're new around here, subscribe to the Know.
The entire initiative is at risk. None of the Golden Worlds panned out. They're a bust. We need to find more resources, but that takes people, and we can't wake them up. Now more than ever, we need a Pathfinder.
Maybe I'm foolish, maybe I'm blind, thinking I